All right, Hegseth and Raisin Cain on Capitol Hill as Trump sounds poised to finish the job in Iran. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. If you've listened to the president the last couple of days, it sounds like the White House is poised to potentially finish the job in Iran. They're doing some pretty heavy work right now. Iran's been very bad. The War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and the Joint Chiefs Chairman Dan Cain, with that, called before the Senate today, mostly to talk about military funding. The Pentagon asking for an explosive allegation, $1.5 trillion for next year. But the Iran war, of course, was the hot topic. Democrats in the Senate lambasting what they call Trump's war of choice. Here's how they sounded.
We're 143 days into a war with Iran, a war of choice that we started.
We have not eliminated their nuclear capability, and whatever duration we've set them back actually pales in comparison to the, and I'll say it, the Obama nuclear deal.
The best way to ensure peace is not to start wars, because wars are a lot easier to start than they are to end.
That consternation is why so many New Yorkers are perplexed, stressed out, and find this war to be incredibly unpopular because they don't understand the choices that the president's making. They don't agree with those choices.
So we're hearing the same thing over and over again about this operation in Iran to denuclearize this terrible regime that appears willing to do just about anything and die for its cause. Hegseth reminding Democrats of the reality that they refuse to accept today. Iran is an Islamist radical country run by radical people who are willing to die just to kill us. And they have been aggressively working toward a nuclear weapon for a very long time now. This was not a sustainable situation, and no honest person believes that the current Trump White House is somehow loaded with warmongers who are just looking to pick a meaningless fight.
Members of our generation in Iraq and Afghanistan watched administrations on both sides try to project some remaking of a society in the image of America that spent thousands of lives. President Trump said we're not fighting stupid wars like that again. And he hasn't. That's why we haven't been trying to remake Iranian society, but simply in a realist, America-first way, ensure they never have a path to a nuclear bomb, full stop. And he has said as a candidate, and he said as a private citizen, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon because radical Islamists with nuclear weapon will wield it over our head in perpetuity.
Secretary,
so President Trump ran on fighting wars differently, and we're doing so overwhelmingly.
Hegseth stood up for the cause today brilliantly. It was actually a lot of fun to watch. But like everything else in Washington, of course, the war in Iran has become a political football. Democrats are very happy to sabotage this mission, which is virtuous, to score political points for November. Nothing is above politics in Washington. Nothing is sacred. But there are moments when the truth does peek through from their side. And we saw that yesterday on Morning Joe, when Joe Biden's Pentagon spokesman John Kirby admitted flat out that Iran really has been a serious threat to the West, more so in recent years. They are working toward a nuclear weapon that they could use against the United States and against the West, and admitting that the claims by the Trump administration about this war are actually true. Take a listen.
Well, make no mistake, the hardliners, the mullahs and the IRGC still want to pursue a nuclear weapons capability. They're a long way from that now, thanks to the attacks last June, those strikes. But I think they still want it.
They still want it. They were working toward nuclear. The attacks that the president started this with last June set them off course. And they're still working toward that goal of getting a nuclear weapon to do God knows what with. That's the truth. You're not going to hear that from anybody else on the Democrat side, but it kind of spilled out in the middle of a conversation on an MSNBC morning show. MAGA voters were not deceived by the president with this war. He didn't turn into a neocon somehow at 80 years old in his second term. He simply saw a threat that needed to be handled, a threat that everyone has seen for decades now, but nobody in Washington wanted to mess with. And we're seeing right now exactly why nobody wanted to mess with this, why this kept getting kicked down the road, because this is really difficult and really messy. And after nearly 50 years, this regime is very much embedded in Iran. It's very hard to force them out of power and to change them in any real way. And that's why they've spent all their time and treasure over the last 47 years digging in, because they don't want to be removed from their position. Doing the right thing oftentimes is very difficult and messy. This is difficult and messy. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. The party, though, that is truly deceptive, as they make claims exactly that way going the other way, the party that's truly deceptive and completely unconcerned with our nation is the party that is enraged by this war. Utterly bizarre and nonsensical positions from Democrats in the Senate. We heard them today. Jeanne Shaheen, New Hampshire, starting off her questioning, the first thing that she cared about in this hearing today was Ukraine. So she starts there and then immediately moves on to describing the mission to denuclearize Iran so it is no longer a threat to the West as a total waste of time.
We finally received the spend plan for the $400 million FY26 appropriation for Ukraine security assistance. This funding was passed back in January, and now there are only 3 months left in this fiscal year. When are we going to see a contract for those defense articles that are contained in the spend plan for Iraq? I'm sorry, for Ukraine.
For Ukraine.
At what point do you stop asking Americans to foot the bill for a war they don't support on top of an inflated budget?
Consider for a moment how distorted your mind has to be as a U.S. senator, as an American politician, to still be totally obsessed with Ukraine, a corrupt non-NATO country in a stalemate war with Russia for years now, and then be this flippant about trying to denuclearize Iran, a terror nation that seeks to destroy your country, the broader West, and our allies in Israel with nuclear weapons, a country that spends literally all of its money trying to terrorize the West. You're obsessed with Ukraine. Anything involving Iran is just a waste of time. Demanding harsher American action toward Russia, not caring at all about Iran moving toward a nuclear weapon, a terror sponsor state, ruthlessly critical of any move against Iran. It's something. It's a country that's killed thousands of Americans, whether they want to admit that or not. I know it's not current and fashionable and talked about, but it's a country that's killed thousands of Americans. It's just true. And a country that seeks to kill all of us, millions of us. And with a nuclear weapon, they'd be more than happy to drop it, die, and go up and get their 72 virgins, whatever nonsense it is they believe, controlled by ideological lunatics who would die for the honor of nuking the West. Do you think it's okay to just let that continue to build and build and build, to let them get closer and closer and closer? Israel calls it mowing the lawn. Whatever we're doing right now is something similar to that. We're trying to just end it. We're trying to just poison the lawn, kill the lawn, rip the sod up. No more lawn. End this once and for all. Very, very common sense things to do if you want to try and preserve the West, preserve the United States. They're furious about that. Hegseth calling it out today.
I would argue providing for American men and women as opposed to Ukrainian men and women is a higher priority for the United States Senate. So 5 supplementals that went to Ukraine, as good as that cause may be, why is that righteous to do? But funding troops in harm's way right now, given the threat and what they're undertaking, this is a partisan exercise. And so it's hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell could possibly care about the war in Ukraine but think that what we're doing in Iran is wasteful or a war of choice or ridiculous or outrageous, whatever it is they call it. Also today, Trump responding after the Wall Street Journal reported that Israel is indicating that Iran is moving its nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain, taking it from one location to another to try and conceal it because it's something that we want to remove. As we've seen 10 straight days of bombing, as it's clear Iran has no real interest in maintaining its side of any peace agreement. Here's the president on going after the nuclear material inside Iran.
How about these people? They're in this because of nuclear weapons, and they're trying to possibly reconstitute a site. We'll hit that site. Any site where they're even thinking about nuclear, we'll be hitting it very, very powerfully.
Okay, there you have it. With that, we're going to bring in Senator John Hoeven. He was in today's hearing with Hegseth and Raising Cane. It's good to see you, sir. Is it time to stop negotiating with Iran and finally end this? It seems like that's where the president's moving toward.
Rob, it's really good to be with you. And obviously, we can't trust Iran at all. The president even went the extra mile and tried with the ceasefire. But as we know, Iran lies. They don't follow anything that they say they're going to do. And so the only way to deal with them is to keep the pressure on. And that's why you saw today, I put the question in front of both Secretary Hegseth and General Kane. And that is, as we continue to get better at the blockade, are we at a point where we can ensure transportation through the Strait of Hormuz so that we can have, oil flowing for energy and so forth?
Right.
But at the same time, keep the blockade on Iran to keep the pressure on them, because the only way that they're going to meet the requirements we've laid out is if we keep the pressure on them. And that's what this supplemental, that's what today's hearing was all about.
Right. As far as the obsession from Democrats, we heard Ukraine so much today from the same people that have such disdain over an operation to denuclearize a terror nation in the Middle East. How do you square that?
Secretary Hegseth made a very important point, a very strong point on that issue. You did in your opening monologue there, and that is, look, we have provided funding with our allies to help Ukraine. Now it is time to make sure that we stop this existential threat that Iran poses with nuclear weapons. And not only is it important that we're stepping up, as President Trump is doing, where are our allies? Where are our NATO allies helping us right now? They should be front and center.
Yep.
And that's the discussion we should be having.
I want to just bring this up before I let you go, because I am a bit of a fiscally concerned American. And today, Senator, the Pentagon asked for $1.5 trillion for fiscal 2027 for the defense budget. If you go back 10 years ago, that was $582 billion 10 years ago. We're talking about tripling in just 10 years. This was, we were told this was going to be a Doge-style government. We were going to be cutting and we're going to get rid of debt and deficits. That's a huge number. And I like defense spending. I think if there's one place you should spend money, it's defense. But how in the hell does the Pentagon need 3 times as much money as it did 10 years ago?
So we're working through that, and we'll see where we end up on the final number. The idea is a one-time expenditure. But your point's well made, and that's why if you go back and look at the one big, beautiful bill, we put real reforms in there in terms of the entitlement programs and some of those kind of things that will provide more accountability and get at what you're talking about, is that we've got, yes, there are priorities in funding, but we have got to find savings and ways to get our debt and deficit under control.
I absolutely agree with you there. You have to find it anywhere you can, and that's a tremendous amount of money. And I know they say that we didn't spend any under Biden, and they're trying to rebuild it back up, but that's a lot of cash. I don't know how this country ever gets out of this debt, which has caused so much of the inflation that we have. Senator, good to see you. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Economic growth combined with reforms to get. You're absolutely right. We've got to address both.
Appreciate it. Senator Hoeven, thank you. I want to bring in Maleki, Senior Fellow for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Blaine Holt also with us, retired Brigadier General. Good to have you both. Blaine, what is the move at this point? We're going heavy on Iran again. Where are we?
Yeah, so, I mean, they're saying, let's talk and have 10 days of ceasefire. Okay, that's an option. Or we could just keep up with our war. But the thing that's probably not likely is all of these calls you hear around for all-out war. It's going to be an all-out thing. It's not going to be that. If they want to talk, they can talk, but they're disingenuous, and they proved it. The only thing they can really talk about is the terms of their surrender. But in the meantime, what we're doing is we're weakening the IRGC, opening up the straits. We're severing key points so that the IRGC can't talk to itself, can't control its forces, darn sure doesn't have any money. And it's getting weakened to a state where we're going to spark this new thing, a new phase called the Iranian Revolution. Guerrilla groups are formed up. They're getting supplied. They're getting their training. That's what all this time since the MOU has been about. The Kurds are in the north. And instead of hijacking their revolution, we're going to aid and abet one by passing the baton and keeping them jacketed with American air power overhead. And that's what I think will be the next phases of this fight.
So we're trying to stir up a revolution inside Iran. Miad, does that sound right to you?
Well, it does sound right to me. I think that the gap between the Iranian people and the Iranian regime is so wide that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're going to have the next round of uprising in Iran. If you look at it historically, they used to be every 4 or 5 years apart that you would see these kind of uprisings in Iran. Now, since 2018, 2019, it's been every 2 years, every year. And let's not forget, right before this conflict in January, the Iranian regime had to kill over 40,000 of innocent Iranians to calm things down domestically. So we're heading back to there. And I think, and I hope that we are preparing in the U.S. government
right.
To aid and support the Iranian people through giving them access to internet, help them to communicate with each other, and hopefully give them air support when the RIGC comes out to slaughter them again.
Blaine, it's worth noting that today we listened to Hegseth talk about ideas like that, like arming or trying to push a revolution in a country. He seemed to indicate that ideas like that in the past have been very foolish. So it's interesting that you think that that's where this is going. I mean, I wonder what did you make of that?
Yeah, so there's a difference here. What we'll do is we will be a support function to an Iranian revolution. They have to take back their country. Look, twice before we have provided 130,000 U.S. forces into decades-long wars that led to nowhere. What we're not going to do is what Secretary Hegseth is talking about, which is clandestine services coming in and executing a color revolution like the kind we saw on Maidan. That also goes nowhere fast. That's something that we manufacture. This is completely organic, and the Iranian people will never have a better opportunity in their lives, indeed, to go grab their country back for themselves right now. Now, they can't do it by themselves because the IRGC has combat capability. But what we will do is we will jacket them with air power. They want to bomb somewhere, they've got it. They need resupply, they'll get it. We're just not going to bring in divisions of forces.
10 seconds left. Back to you, Blaine, real quick. I mean, this sounds like this is going to be a while.
Oh, I would say weeks, months to get to the final liberation. But this is the right track, and we will have the straits open well ahead of that.
Got to leave it there. Miyad, thanks so much. Blaine, good to see you. We appreciate it, guys. Coming up, CNN's Van Jones says his phone is blowing up with Democrats thanking him for calling out the communist takeover of their party.
It's being hijacked by people who are putting in nutty ideas supporting terrorists.
And then later in news from the left, one of my favorite chains, Steak and Shake, calls for a boycott because they no longer allow theft.
You're dangerous.
A very interesting place to be right now. It's been 35 days, as you can see on the counter here behind me, since Nicolas Maduro, the leader of this country, was taken by Delta forces.
Because you're honest.
You don't get political. I don't think actors should.
Well,
thank you.
So break the glass.
And I guess this didn't sit too well with one of the Schmitt heads on Newsmax.
What the FCC is supposed to regulate, ABC breaks that law every single night. That is not a comedy show. That is propaganda.
Watch Rob Schmitt weeknights.
My dad had never been in better shape. Then he had a stroke and passed away. But he had life insurance. So even after he was gone, he was still taking care of us. Ethos.com, 10 minutes, 100% online.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
As America's largest private funder of brain aneurysm research, we support AI that enables earlier detection and saves lives. 1 in 50 Americans has a brain aneurysm, and ruptures strike without warning. Our early investments supported research that helped tech companies develop AI tools, enabling physicians to find aneurysms before they rupture. AI helps doctors act sooner and accelerates life-saving progress. Now is not the time to lose our competitive edge.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
There's a reason the wealthy don't keep all their money in one place. We work hard our entire lives to build wealth for retirement. If your retirement dropped 30% tomorrow, would you be ready? Or would you just have to wait and hope it comes back? The last thing any of us wants is to watch our retirement accounts shrink every time Wall Street panics, the dollar drops or global uncertainty rises. That's why so many successful Americans turn to gold to help protect their retirement. And Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend. Let me be frank, gold is not for everybody, and I do not give financial advice, but I do urge you to get my free wealth protection guide from Preserve Gold and learn about a special offer to receive up to $20,000 in free gold and silver. Education is power.
Text Newsmax to 50505.
Guys, wake up. Testosterone boosters are useless if they're not also fighting cortisol, the hormone that makes you soft after 40. Ageless Male Max does it all with patented KSM66 to boost testosterone and balance cortisol. Get Ageless Male Max at these fine retailers.
I am tired of a set of people on the very far left in the Democratic Party, my party, telling us that in order for us to be progressives, we now have to believe ideas and support ideas that are completely nuts. Putting up candidates who say we should have no police, no prisons, we can't deport anybody. These are terrible ideas. These are awful ideas. Where did these ideas even come from?
So CNN's Van Jones going off on the communist takeover of the Democrat Party as we're watching moderately radical Democrat politicians being voted out of office to bring in even bigger radicals. Jones now says his phone has been blowing up with Democrats who are thanking him for calling this out ever since. Take a listen.
This phone has been blowing up all day. Governors from both parties, senators from both parties, Democrats in the House calling, thanking me for saying what everybody's been saying behind the scenes, which is that this stuff is going too far.
Certainly is. Add to that another Democrat, Bill Maher, who now says he might have to vote for J.D. Vance in 2028.
You told J.D. Vance you're open, your vote is up for grabs.
Yes, my vote is in play because it can't be Trump running. So I'm not living in communist America.
Could you see yourself voting for J.D. Vance?
Yes. If this is the Democratic side, yes.
Something else, isn't it? Katie Zacharia, Senior Communications Advisor for Truth Social. Ben Ferguson, host of The Ben Ferguson Show. Good to see you both. Katie,
good to see you.
This should be their moment, right? I mean, they're getting ready for the midterms. They got Trump in there. They can't wait to get him out. And yet they're having a mutiny of psychotic lefties taking over.
I'm just shocked we're hearing reasonable advice coming from Van Jones that he's starting to see that his party is being eaten alive and that what it is really is it is self-protection, right? They have to survive. He understands that the establishment Democrat is under attack. Finally, how long have we been saying this? And now they're putting back the defense. They're pushing back because they're realizing this radical ideology doesn't resonate with middle America. They are looking at the midterms and they're looking at the presidential race, Rob.
Right. And Ben, I think everybody, even the moderate Democrats, are so scared to criticize the energy center. You know, it's like, they know this doesn't work, but if that's where the energy is, how do you talk trash about it?
You know what's interesting about the whole thing, if you just take it back for just a moment to Van Jones? Van Jones used to be the progressive radical of the Democratic Party. He is now like the establishment, we want to run over you part of the party. He is no different now than Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer can't do anything. He can't go to the bathroom without asking if he has permission from the AOCs of the party because they stopped policing their own. And so now their house is on fire and they don't know what to do because they also have no agenda. They went all in on Trump derangement syndrome, right? Orange man bad, Donald Trump's evil, we hate Donald Trump, and that will somehow get us elected. That's not working either anymore. So when you look at this, this is what freaking out looks like on the left.
Yeah.
Whether it is Bill Maher, whether it's Van Jones, whether it's any of these Papagala James Carville types, because they realize there's a big loss coming their way if they don't stop talking about communism and socialism and Marxism. And I got to say, I am enjoying every moment of it. I think this is amazing.
It's great fun, especially as we all, I mean, midterms, historically, we know what happens. You know, you win the presidency, that first midterm is usually
You're
ugly.
To get your tail whooped.
Yeah, exactly. Katie, I want to show another prime example of how little our government has typically cared about protecting the money that it takes from all of our paychecks. The Treasury Department under Bessent is now saying that they've blocked nearly $100 million in taxpayer dollars that were headed for dead people. And apparently this has been happening for a very long time. Since they implemented a payment verification process last year, Treasury says they've identified roughly 5,000 disbursements worth $99 million. So amid all of these stories about all of these newly found refugees into our country that are able to just steal $50 million from us somehow, even though they come from third world countries, we see this. And it also comes as Kennedy, RFK Jr., announced earlier the Trump administration is halting $1 billion in Medicaid payments to California and Minnesota as part of a fraud crackdown because they've let so much of our money be stolen. Take a listen.
And we have reason to believe that taxpayer money is being misused, especially through fraud. We have a duty to stop the payments, demand answers, and then follow the evidence wherever it leads. If Governor Gavin Newsom or Governor Tim Walz wants this funding released, all they have to do is to provide basic documentation showing that these services are legitimate and not fraudulent.
It's satisfying to see them at least going after all the money being wasted, Katie.
Absolutely. Look, President Trump ran on fixing many of the problems broken in the United States. And he is a builder and a fixer. And it's not limited to the reflecting pool or the fountains throughout D.C. He's put together a team like Secretary Bessent and Secretary Kennedy to be able to go after this waste, fraud, and abuse. And he signed Executive Order 14249 in order to go after this, to protect these bank accounts and to protect all of these transactions, Rob. And here's the thing, is that they're looking right now at $100 million, but it looks like it could be $500 billion by the time they go after all of this. And what we should be reflecting on, if we want to go back to this reflecting pool, is how we got here in the first place. Why did they let such a system have such a sinking hole in it and never fix it in the first place, Rob?
Yeah.
Thank you to President Trump and Secretary Bessent for going after this. It's our money.
And why are Democrats so pissed off when we stop fraud, waste, and abuse? Why does it bother them so much when we do that is another question. Ben,
by the way, Bessent said something that was brilliant. He's the unsung hero here.
Yeah.
He also said we're going to go after the people, the financial institutions that were helping funnel money out of the United States of America from this fraud in Minnesota, for example.
Right.
He announced that, like, this is the first time we're seeing actual accountability, not just for the people that were stealing the money, but for those that were helping funnel the money that were being stolen.
Ben,
and look, you put people in jail, God bless America for that on this one.
Ben, I got 20 seconds left. Wanted to get your reaction to Governor Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey discovering that a software error allowed for 6,600 people who were not citizens of this country to register to vote. Isn't that just so funny how it happens? And she says all this in a news conference today, and then 10 seconds later lambasts the president for saying that we need to require voter ID and proof of citizenship in elections. I got 20 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. Isn't it interesting how the same people that yell at you and say there's no systemic voter fraud, it would never affect an election, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we had a computer glitch, and it just allowed a bunch of random illegal immigrants to vote in our elections. Are bad. It's a computer you should hate, not the Democratic Party. They're doing it on purpose, America. Every time this happens, it's always a Democrat in charge, and they do it on purpose to cancel out American voters' votes.
That's exactly right. Ben Ferguson, Katie Zacharia, good to see you both. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Illegal truck drivers terrorizing our roads with incompetence. The White House effort to end this nonsense up next.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.
While this banana may not save you from someone breaking into your home, Berna's banana helped one vet repel an intruder in his.
This huge guy, 6'5", 6'6", just barreled through my front door. I have my Berna and my Glock. I always go for the Berna first. I've seen enough death and destruction to last 2 lifetimes. Here is the perfect item I can have, feel totally safe, and know I'm not going to kill anybody.
At Berna, we don't sell bananas, we sell peace of mind.
She's been there for you through everything. And now you're learning this next thing together. We get it. Find a caregiver who does too. When it's not you, it's care.com.
Yeah. 2 p.m. still works great. We'll put our best guy on the job.
You said you were the best guy.
Also the sales guy.
You should check out Capitus. You can get a fast business loan and hire some help.
Customer service, please hold. Loans are complicated.
Not with Capitus. It's easy to apply and there are no hidden fees.
I got this.
Stop waiting, start growing, get the funding you need at Capitus.com. You should probably call HR.
You're looking at HR.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Today, kids are navigating an always-on world, consuming more information than ever before. Strengthening youth mental health starts with ensuring kids have strong digital and media literacy skills. Teaching students how to think critically about the content they see online helps them navigate digital spaces thoughtfully and intentionally. We need to teach media literacy in every school. Youth mental health is complex, but media literacy empowers educators and parents to keep kids safe.
My earwax buildup was frustrating. Then I tried new Lipo Earwax Cleanser. The revolutionary formula dissolves earwax 5 times faster than the leading brand and helps prevent future buildup. Feel the difference with new Lipo Earwax Cleanser.
People always ask me how I stay ready, how I lock in when it actually counts. They think I must be on something. It's pure, it's potent, it's all me. Something that never lets me down. Armra, I'm on it.
Getting solutions here to really big problems. The Trump administration expanding its crackdown on illegal alien truck drivers. Department of Transportation teaming up with DHS, investigating nearly 75 entry-level driving training schools suspected of fraud for using improper certifications, falsifying training records, failing to properly train drivers who apply for these licenses. This is a problem all over the country, and we're just starting to see the damage that they're causing when you see some of these horrific accidents. Administration so far taken 24,000 drivers who can't speak English off of our roads. 24,000, forcing states to cancel over 28,000 licenses illegally issued to foreign drivers, purging more than 9,500 unqualified training schools. They're doing a tremendous amount of work to try and make the country safer because of video like this, a string of tragedies that we have seen lately as blue states make it so simple for illegals to drive these 50,000-pound trucks and then maybe pull a U-turn and watch as a whole family gets killed as they pull into the back of a tractor trailer and then, oh, oops. What do they care, right? Derek Bars works under Sean Duffy at the Department of Transportation and joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you on. We appreciate the work on this because these videos are everywhere now. How much work have we done to stop this issue, to contain this growing problem?
Hey, Rob, thank you for having me on your show again. I really appreciate it to highlight this important issue that we've got going on and just commercial vehicle safety. It's just horrific to see the things that are happening involving these individuals like this. And you're showing some of the videos right now, the individuals who should not have been on our roadways in the first place, who are here illegally, who potentially some have gone through driver training schools that did not receive the proper training that they needed, that is required by law. And then they're just pushing them through every single day to be out on our roadways and cause crashes and fatalities that we're seeing right now. It's horrific. And we're partnering closely with DHS, with our folks in the field, to be able to address these driver training schools.
You've pulled 24,000 licenses. I can't believe how big Yeah, I mean, I can see it, remember how big the country is, but that just sounds like a tremendous amount of licenses pulled. 28,000 licenses illegally issued to foreign drivers, 9,500 unqualified training schools. Stephen Miller has revealed the administration believes nearly a third of the truckers in the country are illegal aliens with CDLs. I want to ask you, do you think that companies are seeking out these kinds of drivers because they're probably a lot cheaper than your typical American truck driver?
I think there's probably some of the companies that are out there. There's a lot of really great companies in this industry who are doing the right thing. The ones that we need to be going after, the ones that we are going after, are the ones who are not following the rules, who are bringing individuals into this company, putting them into work, and basically, I call it like a human trafficking piece, where they're allowing them to run past their hours of service. They're giving them more hours in their logbooks to be able to drive further than what they should be, and they should be resting. But there's a lot of great companies that are doing really good things, but these are the ones that we're targeting, and I promise you, we will not stop this fight until we make our roadways safer. And by doing this, by taking individuals out behind the wheel of the vehicle, and we're doing excessive enforcement with our law enforcement partners across the country to crack down on these issues.
Derek Barrs from the Department of Transportation, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani testing the limits of his political power, acting as an agent against our country. That's next with Victor Davis Hanson.
30 countries, 35,000 personnel, one objective. Newsmax takes you onto the USS Theodore Roosevelt for an exclusive look at rim pack exercises, preparing for Pacific threats. Watch Wake Up America tomorrow, 7 a.m.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
If you want to be ready for summer, now's the time to call Sono Bello. Sono Bello helped me target the spots that diet and exercise never could.
Sono Bello gave me my bikini body back.
At Sono Bello, our expert surgeons remove stubborn fat permanently and tighten loose skin in one visit with less downtime. Every treatment plan is personalized for your body, your goals, and the results that you want to achieve.
Walking around this summer with my shirt off, it's the best decision I've ever made.
I see my spark back, and I am so glad that I went with Sono Bello because they have truly changed my life.
With over 50,000 five-star reviews, Sono Bello is America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
I love wearing a bikini again and not having to cover up.
See what's possible for you. Schedule your free consultation today.
I got my summer body at Sono Bello. Get your summer body back. Do this for you.
And our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today. Call now or go to sonobello.com for your free personalized consultation. It's your life. Live it beautifully.
When people think of Life Back, they usually think of saving children.
We do see a lot of kids in the Hall of Saves, but it's full of seniors too.
It's hard to perform a standard maneuver on someone in a wheelchair or with fragile ribs.
We just got these.
Every senior living facility should have a backup client.
So did you get it out with that sucking device? Is that what you got? Life Back, yeah.
Go to lifeback.net or call 877-543-3822.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
The sweet sound of Monday morning.
Somehow you're both wired and wiped out at the same time. Meet Super Calm from Nello, a simple mix to help support healthy cortisol levels and bring you back into balance. Super Calm from Nello.
Anybody who's struggling with alcohol should try Or Health. Within a week, the cravings were completely gone. Or Health is safe, science-backed, and it works. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Alcohol doesn't run my life anymore.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
When it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu, we're speaking about someone who's the subject of an international criminal court arrest warrant. And he's the subject of this arrest warrant for alleged crimes against humanity, for war crimes, and he's the architect of the genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. If someone is charged with a warrant by the International Criminal Court for these kinds of crimes, that's something I believe that should be honored.
Yeah, too bad the ICC is just another communist Islamist organization that, of course, Zoran Mamdani identifies with. That's the mayor of New York somehow, doubling down on his threat to arrest the leader of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, when he comes to the UN for the big meeting in September. Mamdani acting as an agent of anything and any place that opposes the United States. That's essentially his whole repertoire. The mayor was asked about his international affairs commissioner making plans to meet with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations. You wonder how they wanted to help Iran as it fights a war with the United States. A meeting that ultimately never happened because the State Department actually intervened and squashed it. Take a listen to this.
I just want to know just what your feelings are when you look at, for example, your administration also reaching out to the prime minister of, the ambassador of Iran.
Our administration did not reach out to the prime minister of Iran. Our administration received a request from the Iranian consulate.
And we're more than happy to entertain it. Let's bring in Victor Davis Hanson, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, joining us now. Sir, good to have you back on. It really is scary, the kinds of people that have made it into major positions in political power in this country and what they believe and what they support.
Yeah, I don't think Mayor Mamdani anymore is even trying to put up a facade that he's not a radical Islamicist and doesn't hate the United States. I mean, what he's basically saying is that slaughtering 1,200 people is not a crime. Trying to go back in and wait 3 weeks, and after you ask for the hostages to be returned and the perpetrators of that massacre to be extradited, and they refused, what else was Israel supposed to do? But more importantly, the Iranian government had slaughtered somewhere between 40,000 and 50,000 of their own citizens, and his staffers wanted to meet with him. And we never heard that it was some kind of undercover operation where Mamdani would arrest this criminal from Iran for war crimes. Of course not. He was there. His staff was there to praise these people.
Yeah.
He won't. There's no way in the world the Chinese delegation will be arrested, even though they have a million people in essentially a labor concentration camp. And the same thing goes true with the people who come in from Azerbaijan and have just ethnically cleansed 150,000 Armenians. So it's all selective, and it's selective because he's an anti-Semite, he's an anti-Zionist, he's an anti-Israeli, and he's not even making any effort to disguise his prejudices and really his racism. And he's kind of... The other thing really quickly is these people this is not a bottom-up socialist movement. This is a top-down elite group of people. He calls he calls them colonial settlers. He came from an Indian expatriate community in Uganda that comprised 1% of the population, controlled 65% of the GDP, and came over here.
They're rich,
and,
yeah.
You know, and you see Hassan Piker with his Mao suit honoring somebody who murdered 70 million people when he drives a Porsche sports car, or Ro Khanna giving us lectures about socialism when his wife drives a $200,000 Range Rover. He's a multimillionaire. So this is kind of a performance art con about a bunch of wealthy, affluent, upper middle class, frustrated, envious people who really have adopted this fad of socialism. It doesn't mean they're not dangerous, but the idea that they represent the people is just a farce.
It's really, really sad that they've been able to kind of pull the wool over the eyes of so many of the people that support them. And you make so many good points about how vile what they believe is and how, I mean, Zohran Mamdani puts that smile on and can sell anything to his voters. And it's just shocking that he is the mayor of New York. I still can't get that through my head.
Can't either.
Victor Davis Hanson, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, coming up, we're going to gross you out a little.
During that time, like, I also leak like a mucus, which they can't really explain.
Look at her. Everything about her is awake. The body gives it away. There's a frequency to it. It's locked in. Always ready. There's something remarkable about it. When you notice it, you can't help but wonder what they're on. Something that never lets me down. Armra. I'm on it.
If you're concerned about inflation, government debt, or the value of the dollar, you're not alone. Right now, more Americans are turning to physical gold and silver to help protect their savings. I'm Dean Hegseth, President and CEO of Swiss America. For over 40 years, our family-owned company has helped investors protect their wealth through economic uncertainty. But when gold prices rise, something else happens too. New dealers suddenly appear overnight. Big promises, no track record, and too often no accountability. Swiss America has been serving customers since 1982, delivering physical metals, fair pricing, and straight answers. No pressure, no games. If you're considering adding gold or silver to your portfolio, call or text Swiss America and request your free report on protecting wealth with precious metals. When you work with a firm that stood the test of time, you know who you're dealing with today, tomorrow, and years from now. Our experienced team will answer your questions with no obligation. Call or text the number on your screen or visit our website. Experience matters. Trust is earned.
Every 8 minutes, a claim of sexual assault is filed against rideshare drivers.
But rideshare companies prohibit both drivers and riders from carrying firearms to protect themselves.
Imagine this banana was a less lethal device capable of incapacitating an attacker in a fraction of a second and allowing you to escape.
At Byrna, we don't sell bananas. Go to Byrna.com to find out how you can always be prepared to defend.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Today's AI capabilities can make your head spin, but for scammers, it's the ultimate tool. They're using AI to exploit tech gaps and slip past traditional security. PCmatic keeps your information private and devices safe with online security solutions developed in America to protect Americans. Built for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Secure 5 devices for just $50 for your first year. Get online protection at PCmatic.com.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Welcome back. Some breaking news. The 11th night in a row of strikes against Iran as the administration continues to kind of move this thing forward, escalate this situation. Wanted to keep you apprised of that as we move into, again, the 11th night in a row as this war seems to be heating up in Iran. The president appears to be about done with negotiations with this regime. Pretty easy to see why. All right, with that, we start with time now for news from the left. And Steak and Shake, actually, one of my favorite fast food places, by the way, is sick of fountain drink theft, installing anti-theft QR readers for their fountain soda machines. A TikTok video showing a customer pushing the dispenser with nothing coming out until they scan the QR code they're given. The thieves, as you would expect, are furious about this, announcing they're boycotting Steak and Shake. Oh, please don't boycott the place you're stealing from. One saying that they're made to feel like criminals and they'll never go back again. Were you made to feel like a criminal, or are you a criminal? Steak and Shake making it pretty simple, posting on the internet. The move helps them keep prices affordable for their actual honest customers. If nobody steals, drinks can be cheaper. Steak and Shake, one of the first chains to get on board with RFK's agenda, as you remember, moving to cooking fries in tallow. If you got a Steak and Shake, go to it. They're good. The steak burgers are good. Next up, Ashley Webb, a trans male running for the Democrat nomination for U.S. Senate in Maine, talking about his menstrual cycle. I hope you're not eating.
You have mentioned you're intersex. How did that end up coming about? How did you find all this out?
Through medical records that don't add up.
How did you end up going to get like an estrogen level taken?
Where I was experiencing hot flashes and I asked the doctor to run an estrogen test. I would feel really good on like the 15th day of every cycle. And it was a 29-day cycle that I was experiencing. During that time, like I also leak like a mucus, which they can't really explain.
I can't help but feel sorry for some of these people. I got to be honest with you. I don't know what that is. I wish you could get a doctor and help you figure this out. Next up, police body cam footage showing a transgender student from the University of Central Florida absolutely losing his mind after a campus police officer misgendered him before getting arrested.
Why do you let those kids get away with this? They are not supposed to be here!
If you don't lower your voice, I am going to put handcuffs on you.
Try it.
Are you threatening me? Can we get another unit to deal with Jay Lee here? He is having a breakdown.
Say! You! You cop!
He needs.
Say! Stop misgendering me!
We don't call a mental health issue anymore. It's so sad. And Democrats want to build our entire society around the demands of those people right there. Next up, Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. with some great color on Trump. Take a listen to this.
When I was, in the Democratic Party, I thought he's a bombastic guy who doesn't really know anything and doesn't really care about detail or have a grasp for it. But he has an extraordinary grasp for detail. Now that I know him, he is like an encyclopedic mind. He knows everything about Wall Street, who made their money, how they made the money, what the deals look like. And then he knows foreign policy. One time when I was on his plane with him, we started talking about troop strength in Syria and Iran and Israel and Jordan. And he drew a perfect picture of the Mideast with all the countries. And he put the troop strength on every border of all those countries.
Don't you love him? Interesting stuff from Kennedy there about the president. And finally, California Governor Gavin Newsom's press office bragging on X that California is the 4th largest economy in the world and claiming that MAGA is awfully quiet about a story like that. It is always so funny when these lefties try to take credit for the fact that the machine of capitalism soldiers on despite their total incompetence. Gavin Newsom has decimated the quality of life, the business environment, and has people fleeing the most beautiful piece of land on the planet. And he wants you to congratulate him for that. Next up, California Democrats say government can solve every problem we have. They can't even figure out water.
When will Sunset reopen?
So we hope soon. When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
So my friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data, and because they trust me. As for the rest of you, Pure Talk is now offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months. Think of it like a test drive, a super affordable way to see firsthand why a few 100,000 of my closest friends made the switch to Pure Talk, an American wireless company where the friendships really are unlimited.
When the IRS or state tax authorities come after you or your business, your entire life can change overnight. They can garnish your wages, seize your bank accounts, take your home, or even retirement accounts, while penalties and interest continue growing, making it feel impossible to ever catch up.
America Tax Group's experienced tax attorneys and enrolled agents step in, take control, and fight the IRS and state tax authorities directly. Whether you're facing bank levies, liens, we don't back down.
America Tax Group is the nation's leading tax relief firm. Let's take back what's rightfully yours.
Free yourself from prying eyes. Ask privately with Duck.ai. Visit Duck.ai to chat privately with ChatGPT, Claude, and other AIs for free, all in one place. Duck.ai is from DuckDuckGo, where AI is private and optional.
This Home Depot bestseller is helping homeowners transform their homes in a weekend. Get the look of stone without expensive labor or lengthy installations, and even do it yourself. Most projects take just a few hours. Genstone is Home Depot's top-rated and best-selling faux stone panel system, trusted by thousands of homeowners nationwide. Genstone's perfect for any flat surface, including foundations, siding, fireplaces, and more. With fast, free delivery in as little as 1 to 2 days, your project can start this weekend. Save on Genstone during this exclusive Home Depot event. Text DEPOT to 59583 and we'll send you a direct link to shop.
I was over 400 pounds and I felt like I was dying. We've done every crazy diet together.
Everything was so hard.
We came across LifeMD and the medication and said, let's just give it a go.
And it's the best decision we ever made. I've lost 50 pounds with LifeMD.
I've lost 182 pounds with LifeMD. Our marriage has been the best it's ever been. We're living the life that we're supposed to live.
Get Zepbound, Wegovy, and the new Wegovy pill at the lowest cost with or without insurance at joinlifemd.com.
Finally tonight, after a string of water main breaks across Los Angeles leading to uncontrollable flooding, the loss of so much water that they need, including the Sunset Strip flooded out. Just like with the fires, the mayor, Karen Bass, has absolutely no idea how to handle this.
When will Sunset reopen?
So we hope soon. I will tell you that they were closing the leak, and then another one happened. The hope is it'll be in a couple of days, but I just have to tell you, going on that scene, as you have shown, especially the aerial views, I was fearful it was going to take weeks and weeks. I was shocked that they were actually going to be able to repair it sooner than later.
You know what's shocking is the amount of wealth in that state, and nobody's paying attention to anything that actually matters, like the infrastructure. They waste all the money. Bass then confronted by one of the hosts about the city's water main mismanagement.
There's 7,400 miles of water mains in the city of Los Angeles, some of them dating back 110, 120 years.
Right.
We're only going to be replacing 45 miles of the 7,400 this year. That's like less than 1%. If you do the math, it will take 164 years.
Well, and also the issue there is how we speed that up.
Well,
and
where does the money come from?
Well, hold on. With our new general manager, he is looking at going much, much faster. But the whole point of having a plan is so that you can actually do that. And then on the financing, you'll figure out along the way.
Rob Finnerty with us now. It's so unbelievable when you see the kinds of people that are allowed to run major American cities. I mean, that is a completely useless person. And they're not talking about a gender or a race issue. So she has absolutely no idea what's happening or what's going on or how to fix it. They have this tremendous amount of wealth. They piss it all away. Nobody's even taking care of the water or the fires. This is what control. I mean, this is the greatest piece of land in the world, and that's what control.
People go out in L.A. without food, water, and toilet, and it's a devastating, tragic, deplorable situation. But the problem is, come November, Rob, people will vote for that woman. KTLA, by the way, Great station. You worked out there, right? I worked out there.
I actually
the best
auditioned at
station.
KTLA. I took a different job. But.
See, they actually asked, they're like, well, ma'am, it would take 600 million years if we keep at this current paving rate. And she's like, well, that's why you have a plan. Stan, let's go to break. He's like, don't put your finger in my face. I'll take us to break. Rob, good to see you. Good to have you back.
Good to see you.
Infinity starts now.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.